Imagine a scenario of wickedness and depravity where human beings seek to have relations with angels and daughters become pregnant by their own fathers. Today, we will explore the story of Lot, a man whose choices placed him at the center of extraordinary events. Get ready to witness God's judgment and fury, which culminated in the destruction of a civilization. So, I ask you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay until the end of this story. The first accounts of Lot in the Bible are recorded in the book of Genesis, beginning in chapter 11. The story of Lot, a biblical figure, starts with uncertainty about the origin and meaning of his name. Some scholars suggest that he may represent the idea of a veil that covers, indicating the importance of presenting oneself well before others. According to the Bible, after his father's death, Lot left Ur of the Chaldeans and traveled to Haran, accompanied by his grandfather Terah, his uncle Abraham, and Sarai. When Abraham left Haran after Terah's death, Lot accompanied him to Canaan. During a period of great famine in Canaan, Lot and Abraham went down to Egypt and settled there. However, after being deceived, Pharaoh expelled Abraham and Sarai, leading Lot to return with them to Canaan. During this time, both Abraham and Lot prospered significantly, with their herds growing so large that the region could no longer support them, leading to disputes between their herdsmen. The contrast between Abraham and Lot in the biblical narrative is evident primarily in the fundamental choices they make in the face of the opportunities and challenges presented in their journeys. Abraham is characterized by his obedience and trust in God's promises, which is reflected in the way he conducts his life. His faith guides his choices, making him a notable example of someone who places divine will above his own earthly interests. It is worth remembering the episode of the three mysterious visitors in Mamre. One day, Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent under the shade of the oaks of Mamre when he noticed the presence of three men standing before him. The intensity of the account suggests that these visitors had an extraordinary nature, as Abraham quickly bowed in reverence before them. At this moment, he demonstrated remarkable hospitality, inviting them to stay and rest, offering them water to wash their feet and food to restore their strength. It is during this encounter that Abraham and Sarah receive surprising and transformative news. One of the visitors reveals that by the same time the following year, Sarah, though already elderly, would have a son. This divine promise aligns with a previous one, in which God had assured Abraham a numerous offspring, comparable to the stars in the sky. The story of the visit in Mamre not only highlights Abraham's exemplary hospitality, but also reveals the intimate and personal nature of the relationship between God and his faithful servant. On the other hand, Lot seemed increasingly influenced by the temptations of the material world and seduced by seemingly prosperous opportunities. For these reasons, Abraham and Lot decided to separate. During the separation, Abraham generously allowed Lot to choose first the land he would occupy. Abraham's decision to separate from Lot, seeking to preserve harmony and avoid conflict, highlights the spiritual maturity of this patriarch, who values peace and communion with God above material disputes. Lot chose the fertile plains of the Jordan, near the Dead Sea, close to Sodom. He was attracted by the beauty and fertility of the region, allowing himself to be influenced by purely material considerations. This decision, though understandable from a human perspective, highlights Lot's vulnerability to the seductions of the world, in contrast to Abraham's spiritual firmness. After the separation, Lot settled in Sodom, where he quickly became involved in local affairs and seemed to have achieved a prominent social position. However, the Bible describes the inhabitants of Sodom as extremely wicked, a situation that deeply distressed Lot. The Apostle Peter, in the New Testament, describes how Lot was tormented daily by the wickedness he witnessed in the city. While Lot was in Sodom, a battle occurred in which kings from Mesopotamia defeated the cities of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zor. In this conflict, all the goods of Sodom were plundered, and many inhabitants, including Lot, were captured. Upon being informed of what had happened, Abraham organized a rescue force that, in a night battle, defeated the enemy army and recovered Lot's goods and family. It was during this episode that Abraham met Melchizedek. Despite the war involving Sodom, Lot did not leave the city, and his story continues to be told in the Bible. The narrative proceeds with the visit of angels to Sodom, which remained engulfed in chaos and depravity. The divine presence in the corrupt city highlights God's concern with human wickedness. This situation resonates with the message of Jeremiah 23 verse 24, emphasizing that God is attentive to the cry resulting from injustice. Divine intervention in human affairs reflects God's commitment to righteousness and his willingness to act in the face of evil. The Lord declares his intention to investigate the sins of Sodom, thereby revealing his justice and rejection of iniquity. However, faced with such disappointment, God decides to destroy the city. The biblical narrative highlights the depravity of Sodom's inhabitants, especially evident in how they receive the angels of the Lord. The men of Sodom, in their sinful conduct, desired to have sexual relations with the angels, a behavior that was one of the main reasons for the city's destruction. During this turmoil, Lot controversially tried to calm the situation by offering his daughters to the men of the city, an action that reflects his weakness and the harmful effects of the city on him. At this moment, the Bible delves into Abraham's courageous intercession before the Lord, revealing a genuine pursuit of divine understanding and justice. Abraham, aware of Sodom's imminent destruction, dares to question God about the possibility of sparing the righteous along with the wicked. This bold dialogue resonates with the exhortation in James 5 verse 16, which highlights that the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. The narrative continues with the courageous negotiation between Abraham and God, where Abraham dares to question the possibility of sparing the city for the sake of the righteous. Psalm 86 verse 15 reflects this context, proclaiming, "But you, Lord, are a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness." This reflection emphasizes God's willingness to listen to the pleas of his servants and his readiness to act with compassion in response to fervent intercession. The story reveals not only God's compassion, but also the importance of persistence in seeking justice and mercy. When God decided to destroy the cities of the plain, including Sodom and Gomorrah, the Bible recounts a remarkable event. Before Sodom's destruction, Lot and his family were rescued by two angels sent by the Lord. This deliverance occurred thanks to divine mercy and God's commitment to the covenant established with Abraham. Faced with the inhabitants of Sodom's insistence on capturing the angels eventually struck the men with blindness. The angels then ordered Lot to take his entire family out of the condemned city. Lot hesitated to leave Sodom, and it was necessary for the angels to lead him out of the city by force. During the escape, the family was warned not to look back. However, Lot's wife disobeyed this order and was turned into a pillar of salt. The transformation of Lot's wife into a pillar of salt is a dramatic representation of the consequences of disregarding God's instructions. Lot, though spared from the imminent destruction, is not exempt from the moral consequences of his choices. His decision to dwell near Sodom exposed his family to a corrosive environment, and the story reveals Lot's struggle to maintain his moral integrity amid surrounding corruption. Lot's struggle resonates with contemporary challenges faced by Christians who often find themselves in societies permeated by values opposed to biblical teachings. After leaving Sodom, Lot and his two daughters took refuge in a cave in a mountainous region, afraid to remain in any other city. This attitude of seeking isolation may symbolize not only physical shelter but also a state of emotional and spiritual seclusion, raising the question of how traumatic experiences can impact a person's ability to fully engage in life and relationships. It was in this place that a terrible event occurred. Fearing for their safety and concerned with preserving the family lineage, Lot's daughters got their father drunk and, in a desperate act, lay with him on successive nights, seeking to conceive. From this incestuous union were born Moab and Ben-Ammi, who became the ancestors of the Moabites and Ammonites, respectively, peoples who would later trouble the Israelites throughout biblical history. The narrative about Lot in the Bible continues, highlighting his complex and controversial relationship with his daughters. However, after the events in Sodom, Lot's story remains without further details, leaving it unclear whether he was able to rebuild his life or ended his days in the cave in the mountains where the events with his daughters took place. It is important to note that the Apostle Peter mentions Lot in his second epistle, specifically in chapter 2, verses 7 and 8, referring to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. In the New Testament, Jesus mentions Lot in the Gospel of Luke, in an apocalyptic context, recalling the destruction of Sodom and Lot's salvation as a reminder for the end times, emphasizing the importance of readiness and obedience to God. Lot's story shows us a man who had the opportunity to learn from Abraham, but made choices that led him away from God's ways. Through his life, we are reminded of the importance of maintaining our faith and integrity, even when confronted with the temptations and challenges of the world. Lot's story challenges us to reflect on how our choices and the pursuit of comfort and material prosperity can distance us from God's purposes while reminding us of divine patience and mercy. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends so that they can learn more about the fascinating stories of the Bible and their significance for our lives today.